seconds, buddy. I don't care what you got. Good afternoon. I'm Jerry O'Banion, and I'm the acting chair of the meeting today since the ones that were supposed to conduct the meeting boogied out, didn't come. So I'd like to call the May 17th meeting of MCAG to order. And the first item is roll call. Oh, you want us to have the Pledge of Allegiance first? Okay, let's have the pledge to the flag. Sure, go ahead, Lloyd.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have an invocation today? I see no one coming forward, so we do not. Artist, come on up here. Let me figure out how to turn your...
It is done. Shall we pray? Will you bow your heads with me? Dear wise and loving Father, we come today and we gather in this place. Thank you, God, for life in and of itself. Thank you for those, God, you have chosen to serve on this important council and board. Thank you for those who you have elected, God, to serve your people. Now we ask for guidance and direction in all that we do, keeping in mind that it is a gift for us to be able to serve those which you have given unto us to serve. Let everything be done, not for our glory, but for yours. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Next is roll call.
Director Hogue, Director Lohr, Director McCabe, Director McDaniel, here. Director Murphy,
Here.
Director Oliveira, here. Director Pereira, here. Director Price, here. Director Vialta, here. Director O'Banion,
Here. And we have a quorum. Is there any public comment? If so, please come to the podium and give your name. See no one come forward. Item number 6 is the minutes of both MC. Thanks for guiding me in this. We would like to have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second? And we have a second from the Atwater guys. Any questions or disagreements on that motion and second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried unanimous. Now can we have minutes? And that's minutes of Merced County Association of Governments Governing Board. Excuse me for a minute. Would you wait 1 second, please? Transit Joint Powers Authority, as well as the Regional Waste Management Authority. Now then, did you wish to make a motion, Mr. McDaniel? Yes, sir. Okay, is there a second? Jim Price seconded that. So that's the minutes. Any comments from the public? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried unanimous. Citizens Advisory Committee report from Jose. Jose, could you come up to the podium where the microphone is? You're being recorded.
I have my report, but I was told to make it short, so I have a one-page report. Okay, so maybe this will help. Okay.
Who was that person that told you to be short? Thank you very much.
I hate. I missed the MCAG. Eva, for giving me the opportunity of being a member of the 2018 One Voice. Indeed, your staff and the Townsend team are professionals. And the acting chair, could you please present this? You have a choice, either Patrick or Stacy. It's up to you now.
Oh, it's up to me. Tell me those names again.
And that concludes my report.
It's going to have to be Patrick, because he's pretty close.
Okay.
On behalf of Jose and the group.
Thank you very much. This is a collage of photos from our trip to Washington, D.C., and I will happily offer it to Stacy to put in her office if she's so inclined.
That's all I wanted. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Jose.
Thank you, Jose. Any questions of Jose before he leaves? Seeing none. Mr. Dumas.
My cue. And just to remind you people, I really love this board. And Patrick, you should really appreciate him. I know you haven't been here long, but compared to the other boards that don't go up and down the district that I go to, this is the best one.
I never said I didn't appreciate them.
They're awesome. Yeah, they are awesome. I provided everybody a short list of our notes. You can all read those, but I do want to highlight two things. One is the northbound 99 Livingston project did get funded. So that's little over $37 million got added to that. And congratulations to the city of Los Banos. We got the planning grant for 152 approved. That came out Friday. And I urge you to resubmit that Pioneer grant because it was right under it. And those grants will come out again this summer. With SB 1's chaotic ways, they're trying to fast forward a lot of these things. So if you can have staff submit those pretty quickly again. Honestly, I didn't see much in the Pioneer grant they needed to change that would make it a better grant. So I think it should do well next time. But other than that, thank you. Okay, here's your shot.
Any questions of Caltrans?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, I just want to clarify, Tom was absolutely correct. He mentioned that the northbound Livingston 99 project was funded in what's called the TCEP program that was just acted on yesterday. That is in addition to the previous funding that was put in the STIP.
Oh, yeah, that's
for
true.
both northbound and southbound. Northbound and southbound we're currently in the STIP for 21-22, a couple of years from now. This means that the northbound direction can actually proceed, and we actually talked to District 10 Management yesterday, and they hope to have that out to bid next spring.
Yes.
Very good.
With this money, it should go through pretty quickly. And they're going to add some extra things to it, so they'll take care of a lot of the overall package with this one. So it'll be, southbound will be cheaper than northbound, but that'll be good.
Other comments?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you. Your staff is. All right. So staff has been out on North Highway 59 mowing,
Okay.
and in 2 days I had 2 constituents say, "Wow, Caltrans has never mowed such a wide path and done such a good job."
I'll have
So
to pass
thank
that
you.
on
Let
to
them
them.
know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lloyd. Anything else? Thank you, Tom.
Nothing, bro? Good. Thanks.
Next is item number 9, the consent agenda, which includes the 217F tip amendment, 13, to the program 218 State Highway Operations and Protection Program, SHOP program, Yards MCAG annual agreement for services, and the proposed budget, the draft overall work program and budget for 2018 to 19. What's the pleasure of the board in regards to those 3 items? Or are there questions on those 3 items? Is there a motion? Have a motion to approve the consent number 9. Any second? Second. Comments or discussion on those items? Anyone in the public? It's all in from. No, you're okay. We accept them? Do you want us to accept them or just one? Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. We do have a motion in a second. We'll go forward with the vote on that. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Item 10 is also info, but it's information discussion only. MCAG newsletter, the calendar of meetings, the regional transportation open houses, the technical review board meeting minutes. Any comments on those items? Not seeing anyone bringing attention to them, we'll go on to item number 11. Transportation planning update. Matt.
Livingston. And we have open houses, and I have the flyers up here. Anybody who wants to take one, basically on Wednesday, next Wednesday at 6:30 is the first open house. We'll be in this downstairs here at City Hall. And then the day after that, Thursday, we'll be in Los Banos. at council chambers. And then the following week on the 30th, we'll be in Livingston council chambers. And on May 31st, we'll be in Planada. And then after that open house, then we have a 2-month comment period and all that sort of thing in responses to comments. And then you'll see a final draft come back in August, hopefully for adoption. And if you have any questions on the
Questions
RTP,
or comments?
I could answer those.
All right, thank you, Matt.
That's all I have to report.
Next is the 218 One Voice debriefing. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. We will. All right. Thanks.
All right, anything else? Thanks again. Next is the One Voice debriefing by Stacy.
Thank you very much. There's so much to say about One Voice, but I'm going to try to be brief because I know we have a long agenda. I first want to say thank you to Jose. That was very kind. Jose was a great addition to the delegation, and we also had and say thank you to Directors Oliveira, Villalta, and McDaniel for participating this year. We had an unprecedented delegation of 24 members. Then you add our staff and the Townsend staff, and we had a total of 30. So that was twice what our delegation typically is in the 4 years that I've been involved with the program. But it was a successful trip. We had, because of the size of the group, we developed 3 strike teams around the issue areas. So each of the 3 strike teams carried 2 of the main platform issue areas. So, you know, transportation and now I say that water, economic development and education and housing and public safety. So those were the 3 tracks. We covered over 26 meetings in 2 days with those 3 teams. Each team had its own schedule, so we had 3 teams working, you know, at the same time, which is why we had 3 staff people, so that we could each take a group. And while it was, I think, very successful in covering a lot of ground, bringing together public and private partners with One Voice to talk about these issues, it did prove to be challenging. I think it was successfully implemented, and I think everyone that was largely due to everyone just being very on task, and the delegates were very flexible as things changed, but both in the development of the program and in the execution, having such a large delegation was a bit of a challenge, and at times it could be a little distracting in narrowing down and being focused. But with that said, it did mean smaller meetings, which has been something that we've been really trying to do. You know, any of you that have participated or even gone to a meeting on the Hill in Washington, you know, if you have more than 3 or 4 people in your group, you're likely not going to fit in a member's office. So having smaller groups of people not only meant that we could go more places and fit more comfortably, but it also meant we were able to have more conversational meetings. Our debrief went really well. The feedback we're getting from the participants it's all very positive. But what staff is going to be doing, and I will likely be bringing some ideas back to you next month, is looking at how we can try to reduce the scope of the program by number. That can also mean we can better align the topics with the priorities of this agency, but also give our member jurisdictions who are very committed to this program the opportunity to take back, you know, key projects or issues that may just be really ripe for what's happening in Washington. Because we recognize it's not just about the priorities of the agency, but it's also a tool that many of your agencies use to highlight programs or get information. So we've already been discussing how we could do that. So we'll be coming back with some ideas next month. But all in all, it was a really unusual trip in the sense of how large it was and how many issues we had. But all feedback and staff opinion is that it was executed well and it was successful. And I know there's already been a couple of success stories that have come out of it and leads that were made that jurisdictions are looking to get some real activity out of. So that's the long and short of it. it, but I feel like we never stop talking about One Voice, and that's going to be true because we'll have an item on the agenda next month.
Any questions or comments or additions to the report? Thank you, Stacy. Next is the Measure V implementation update.
Okay, thank you.
Information only.
Thank you. There are a couple of the main things. I want to start off with the really good news. So I know you all, we talked, and we've all met quite a bit this week and talked about One Voice with the region, Measure V. See, One Voice is never off my mind because we had our regional projects committee meetings. But in the 2 days that have since passed, we got our final payment for the first year of collection. Not only the final payment, but also the true up. So with that amount, that means we actually have a true account for how much money we got in our first year, which was projected to get $15 million, and we ended up with $16,846,255. So it puts us at about $1.8 million over what we projected in the first year. So that's all good news. Just wanted to recap because some of you aren't on the committees that were talking about the regional projects. We had very successful East and West Side Regional Project Committee meetings on Tuesday, and the actions or the recommendations that came out or the approaches that each committee took were very similar. I think the big ticket items is both committees determined that they would like to set aside 20% for future leveraging opportunities. And both committees were successful in identifying a set of projects or investments around projects that met that projection of a 2-year amount of revenue. So that gave us a lot of really good information. We've already had a call with KNN, and they'll be working on a cash flow model and a couple different scenarios that we can be walking through together on the 6th of June for the workshop, both in how to craft this implementation plan for the first 2 years, but also looking at what those investments might look like and what kinds of considerations and decisions are going to need to be made between now and the adoption of the longer term plan by June of 19. I mentioned the June 6th workshop. Please make sure you mark your calendars for that. That is the 10 to 12 on June 6th at the County Admin Building. I have conveyed to them that there's still quite a bit of interest in talking about bonding, what bonding would look like and how that would impact future availability of funds and project capacity and whatnot. The only two quick little tidbits I'll mention are funding agreements. Each of the jurisdictions have an agreement with MCAG to receive your local funding. Those were 1-year agreements that expire in June. So each of your staff are working on bringing your individual funding agreement with MCAG to the council and to the board for action by the 10th or 11th of June to basically have a 2-year agreement in place so that we can continue to issue those local funding payments, the local projects revenue. And then lastly, the maintenance of effort, which is I think the next item, but just as a reminder that this is something that we're doing to establish if you have any general fund money that you have spent on transportation in the 3 years that were identified in the expenditure plan, that we either document those to make sure you continue to maintain those moving forward, or we determine that that is zero so that you don't have that requirement to maintain those general fund expenditures for transportation moving forward. That's it. Unless there are questions.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next is item 14, amendment to the 216 half-cent transportation sales tax measure expenditure plan. Stacy?
Thank you. This is a request to amend the transportation expenditure plan that was approved by voters in 2016. I know that sounds really scary, but I'll assure you right off the bat, it's not changing anything that is critical to the distribution of funding or how the funding is allocated or what is allowable or not. It's basically just clarifying language that provides you the authority to grant exemptions to one-time unusual expenditures that a jurisdiction might have made from their general fund into transportation. If it was a one-time unusual amount, that you are not held to that amount moving forward for the next 30 years. So that maintenance of effort requirement. So basically, in your 3 fiscal years, 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, any general fund money that you expended for transportation purposes could be considered as part of your maintenance of effort, which means that if it's determined that you spent $100,000, you would be responsible for investing that $100,000 of general fund money every year for transportation for the next 30 years. There are situations, and this is a very common practice, when a jurisdiction had a one-time expenditure out of their general fund, the local transportation authority, which is this board, has the authority to waive that one-time expenditure so that it doesn't carry over to that 30-year obligation. It basically resets you at zero. The way the expenditure plan was written doesn't clarify it to the extent we would like to see it, and so we think we do the authority to amend it is in the plan, so you have that authority to amend it. So we're proposing that we do so that that clarity of your authority to provide those exemptions for jurisdictions that need it is in the black and white. So it's a little bit of a wonky subject, but I hope that made sense. Doesn't change anything integral to the document, really. Oh, and I should say, there's a couple other little cleanup ones. Changing the title of the document to the Measure V expenditure plan, just because that's what we call it, and that's just kind of the name. We didn't know it was going to be Measure V when it went to the ballot. So, I mean, at the time of the expenditure plan, I'm sorry. The other is to correct an error that's on page 15. It inadvertently said 4 representatives when there truly are 7. So just to clarify that, and then to add an appendix, because this is a 30-year document, to add to the appendix a catalog of amendments as they happen, so that we can track what the original document was that passed in 2016 and any amendments that may happen over the course of 30 years. Now I'm really done.
Okay, so you're requesting an action of a motion to approve those amendments as reported? Correct. As amendment number 1 to the measure? Mm-hmm. Correct?
That's correct.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? We have a second. Discussion? Anyone have comments? Lloyd?
Stacy, if I could get just a little clarification. Now that the measure's passed, the new name that we're wanting seems exceptionally long. You know, is there a reason why it needs to state a bunch of those things in there versus just Measure V expenditure plan?
I don't think so, because, so you're saying if we just stopped at Measure V expenditure plan, not including the half-cent transportation sales tax measure for Merced County?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, there may be a good reason why it needs to be there.
The only thing, I was just trying to preserve what the voters passed. I was just trying to preserve that, but add a shorter, like a nickname to it that we could just call it the Measure V expenditure plan. So I was just trying to find that in between. But I don't, unless council sees a reason, I mean, we could just make it the Measure V expenditure plan. It's.
I mean, I don't think I'm not, either way is fine with me, but.
I'm glad to hear that.
All right, thank you.
Because the motion states that all will be there. Unless you want to amend the motion. Anything else? Anyone in the public? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Item 15 is Service Authority for Freeway Emergency Update. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. In 1996, MCAG was chosen to be the service authority for freeway emergencies that will maintain all of the call boxes within the county. The original system was designed to go along I-5, State Route 152, and State Route 99. That system was partially implemented until 2016, where it was scaled back to only 14 call boxes along Highway 152 because of the prevalence of cell phones. Due to public outreach, we kept the 14 call boxes on 152 because they were in the region and from Santanella to the west, up Pacheco Pass, where cell service is, quite frankly, terrible. So Those call boxes have since been upgraded to 3G technology and also have TTY keyboards and screens. Our current contract with CHP to manage the calls and respond is up. That contract is not to exceed the value of $1,800 and is currently out with council. Once we receive that back,
$1,800
yes, for 3 years.
a year?
No, solid. Just for the period of 3 years, $1,800, $600 per year. And then once we receive that back from council, we will have the executive director sign it to reopen our contract with CHP. We are currently working on an RFP for the call box maintenance. We currently contracted with Siemens, and that contract's up, and we should be going out sometime in the new fiscal year. Also in the new fiscal year, we will be conducting some public outreach. We have some funding saved up from vehicle registration, as the vehicle registration fees were designed to fund the entire system, not just 14 call boxes. Our public outreach will consider some potential options, such as the freeway cleanup program, freeway service patrol, further call box upgrades to 4G or 5G technology, and intelligent traffic system improvements. And again, that public outreach will be sometime after the beginning of the new fiscal year. Any questions?
Questions or comments? Okay, Joe, who else was on here when this was established? That's it. And actually, it was in a time that that phones were flip phones. So it's come a long ways, and there's been talk about trying to do away with it. I think that'd be a mistake, because we need to find other ways to use that money that's already in place at the state for the benefit of the traveling public in Merced County. Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 16, MCAG financial report for July 2017 to March 2018. Unaudited. Now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of highlights for the third quarter is, as we stated last month, our ICAP got approved for the 15-16. The ramifications for that is it opens up our carryover balances for this year. So if you look at the FHWAPL, we can spend all that money down now. Before it was frozen, and we could only spend up to our current allocation was $750,000. Another highlight for this quarter is that FTA 5304, the Sustainable Planning Grant. We are wrapping that grant up, and we'll be closing out, and maybe at the end of the month or beginning of next month. Other than that, we also spend, for the pavement management, we spend up to $294,000. Of that, $200,000 was paid by MCAG with that carryover that was unfrozen. Any questions?
Comments or questions? You must have done a pretty good job of reporting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 17, Regional Transportation Impact Fee and SB1 Local Partnership Program. Patrick.
Yes, I'm gonna take this one, Mr. Chairman.
Hit the timer.
On myself, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As I've been saying for a few months now, I'm not going to rehash the whole thing because we have been talking about this for a few months. So I'll only report significant changes since last month, and also and discuss a potential action that could be taken by this board. The important things to report are that given actions taken just this week, both by the cities of Atwater and Los Banos, now all 7 jurisdictions have rescinded the RTIF, and they've all taken action on that, and they've all taken action on the 2016 project list as well. So that has been complete, and I think that's a major milestone We have to discuss with legal counsel further about documenting, if that's a proper term, documenting that milestone, but the important thing is that those actions have been taken and open meetings by all the groups. So thank you very much to all the jurisdictions for making progress on all those items. So that really does, in my opinion, enable this body. Not that they always had the ability to expend funds, but I think that really does enable further forward motion on this. The only other notable thing is that we did talk to Caltrans District 10 Management yesterday. They're still working on getting us the $108,000 to be released back, but we're confident that'll happen in the near future. And we will be, keeping an eye out for any remaining payments that are going to be coming. And should any remaining payments come from the two jurisdictions, we have to verify that. That would add to the total of the available funds. So, having said that, as we discussed last month, we had discussed an option that is shown on page 131 of your packet, which distributes the RTIF funds, the remaining funds that are available, just under $5.4 million, adds to that approximately $1.25 million of Measure V funds for a total of just over $6.6 million. As I had indicated last month and discussed with the board, one of the benefits of using this method is not only that each jurisdiction does receive their quote-unquote fair share of each of the funds, very importantly, to make this implementable and make it more palatable and reduce the bureaucracy overall for all the jurisdictions, this board has the ability, given its authority over both the RTIF and the LPP funds, to allocate those funds to specific jurisdictions. So, in that light, with $1.25 million of the LPP funds available, if you look at the shares that are available for each of the jurisdictions and taking account some of the things, like for example, there's a jurisdiction that doesn't have a favorable project in the 2016 list. If that jurisdiction, for example, receives LPP funds, that relieves them from that concern. So I'm going to give you a staff recommendation, and that is that the four jurisdictions with the least amount of funding, if those four jurisdictions received the funds that they're eligible for in LPP funds, that would use over $800,000 of those funds, leaving over about $400,000 left. So if Atwater, Dust, Palos, Gustine, and Livingston all got LPP funds by action of this board allocated to them, that would leave Los Banos, Merced, City of Merced, and Merced County all to receive RTIF funds. And one of those three jurisdictions, it's actually $383,000. One of those jurisdictions would receive primarily RTIF, but then $383,000 of LPP money as well. And of course, MCAG staff would work with whomever receives each of the funding sources. For example, on the LPP funds, you do have to go through a programming with the CTC, and MCAG staff would work with those jurisdictions to accomplish that. I can provide more information about each of the funding sources, but as needed, and have capable staff that can help as well. But I'll stop there and
comments or
discuss.
Question, anyone? Mike?
So which jurisdiction? It was a little bit cryptic. Which jurisdiction?
Well, what if I may, Mr. Chair, Member Murphy. So the $383,000, and that's subject to change. Should the amount go up slightly with contributions, but approximately that amount of money. In my professional opinion, it would be most logical to have that. It really could go to any of the three. It would make, I think, the most sense to go to one of the larger two jurisdictions, but those jurisdictions know better about what their intended uses are. But having said that, if any of those jurisdictions, Los Banos, City of Merced, or Merced County, said we want to do a project, their LPP has a 50% match requirement, but the RTIF money could be the match. So there's not an issue as far for any of them of hey, I've got to come up with match money because the other portion of the funds would be much larger.
Has this been discussed with each one of those three entities?
I don't know. I don't believe. No, we haven't actually had this. I didn't sit down with each of these three entities and have this conversation. But the point of the matter is that any of those three, I don't believe it has a significant impact on any of the three jurisdictions. I don't think there's a significant negative or positive result from having a portion of the LPP funds. You're still getting the same amount of money in total.
You're looking at the table on 131, right?
Correct.
The 383,000 number, is that on the table, or is that sort of, or I'm trying to find it.
Well, I'm just saying that if you did the, if you go to the right column, the RTIF plus LPP, if this board were to direct LPP funds to the first four jurisdictions there, I'm just informing you that after you fund those first four, you still have 383,000, which would need to be allocated to one of the other three jurisdictions.
And Atwater doesn't have an RTIF project? Not an eligible project?
Well, I'm not saying, I'm not indicating that they don't. Atwater would have to weigh in. But yes, that's completely up to this board. If Atwater were interested one way or another, they should feel free to indicate their preference.
Yeah, through the chair. Actually, Atwater does the Winton Way project, which we had to phase down into phases where this RTIF money could step up and really help because that is a regional project.
But just to remind you, the LPP money is extremely flexible, and you could use the LPP money for that as well. So I don't think that there's a negative impact should you take either funding source for that project.
But you're saying then the last bit of money would be funded to one of the last three entities?
Well, the trick.
That's what I don't.
Yeah, the trick is that there's 1.25 million of the LPP funds. Okay, and you want to minimize the number of jurisdictions that have to go through that process to use those funds.
Okay.
So rather than having it.
State.
Yes, with the state, with the CTC. So rather than having it, rather than having it go to all 7 jurisdictions, you could reduce that number somewhat. And by providing those LPP funds to 4 of the smaller jurisdictions, that relieves them of having to comply with the RTIF requirements. So we're overall trying to reduce the when a regulatory the rules you have to follow.
Just 1 second, Jim, please. So the suggestion is not have all 7 entities going to CTC to get approval.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So in other words, what you're trying to do is you're trying to shuffle the money around to where everyone will participate on an equal basis, and at the same time get approval for projects at CTC.
Well, the jurisdictions that would get LPP would, yes, indeed, have to go to CTC. But, for example, if the city of Merced, just as an example, did not receive LPP funds and they had all RTIF, then they don't have any need to go to the CTC.
Okay. Jim. Mike.
It seems like, and I may be wrong, that one of the consequences, though, is if, for example, you're Atwater and you have an RTIF project, RTIF eligible project, but you only have LPP funds, you wouldn't have. You'd have to come up with a local match somewhere else because you'd no longer have the RTIF to match it, right?
You're actually that is actually correct. That's a very, very good point. The LPP does have a 50% match, which we did provide in here. It does have a 50% match. That's absolutely a valid point. But the good news is that you're very flexible on what you can use it on and also what the match can be. It could be SB1 money. It could be Measure V, local, regional. So using the example you said of the Winton project.
Yeah, so it already has Measure V going to that, so then we use that as the match.
Just as an example. But yes, it is absolutely a valid point in consideration.
So in the city of Merced, we have 2 RTIF eligible projects, but neither of them are tier 1 priority, I would say. It's Highway 59 widening to Los Banos, the passing lanes, and widening of Mission Avenue. Near 50, those are the only 2 projects that are RTIF eligible in the city. Our number 1 project had always been Campus Parkway. So while we do have RTIF eligible projects, they're not sort of the tier 1 priority projects. So we'd be sort of funding those. If we got all RTIF, for example, we would be locked in. We would fund those or set the money aside to fund them before projects that we think are probably more regionally important that aren't on the 2016 project list, but are on our, for example, East Side Regional Project list. Like the bridges over Black Rascal Creek at North Highway 59, for example. Right? You're saying take all LPP?
Wait a minute. Mike, what was the statement of the question?
Mine?
Yeah.
Just have Merced take all the LTP.
Well, what entities are eligible to take it or not take it?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
I'm going to guess the county.
any jurisdiction could receive the LPP funds. That's at the discretion of the
Which
board.
ones can't? Some of the, isn't there some funds
No,
that
no.
some of them aren't eligible
Well,
for?
yeah, the issue comes, Director Hogue, in places like Dos Palos that has,
Which is pretty important, by the way.
Well, just
didn't know
as
that.
an example of the city of Dos Palos, if it received RTIF money, it would have, because of the nature of the list of projects, it would have a serious difficulty in ever expending those funds. So
Thank you.
but what Member Villalta suggested of one jurisdiction, either the sheriffs for the city of Merced and the county of Merced are large enough that either one of them could take the entire LPP, but that would lead to an issue for jurisdictions like Dos Palos, and each of those jurisdictions, city or county, would still have to take RTIF.
So does how much available? I'm sorry.
All right. Wait a minute. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. So does how much available?
In LPP, there's $1.25 million.
1.25.
Correct, of that type of fund. Yes.
All right, so the people that don't have, or the entities that don't have projects on the RTIF would be Dos Palos, correct? And Gustine? No, we have a project. You have a project on the RTIF?
At the
So
roundabout, huh?
you could use all the money. That's not a problem. Your share you could use in RTIF.
Right.
All right. And you cannot use, you do not have a project, right? Okay. So, and your share, pardon me?
We have a project, but it's not a viable project.
Okay. All right. So LPP would help you more than, but if you receive that, then what would you use for your match? Well, how much are you receiving total? Is it?
The Dos Palos share is $60,000.
$60,000.
So at a minimum, their project would have to be about
Half and half?
121, yeah, 121,000, and they would just have to find 60 from Measure V or SB1 or something else, which they believe they've indicated that they're able to do.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
On Tom Dumas's roads?
So what are we being asked to do today?
Well,
Are we taking final
it
action on this,
is
or-
if with the pleasure of the board has it in its authority, to, if they so desire, to actually allocate the RTIF funds and the LPP funds to jurisdictions. And should an action like that transpire, that would allow each of the jurisdictions to then.
Is there an expediency matter here? Or would it be better to get it down in black and white, what you're going to recommend, and then come forward?
Well, anything is possible, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I think I would feel a lot better if it went back to our city managers and make sure that.
No. It's going to go back to the city managers and the city CEO.
County CEO.
Yeah, and I will stand corrected. Okay. To all entities, the head administrator of all entities, to send it back, and so it could be reviewed by staff, and then have it in black and white, as someone suggested, as you suggested, and then come back and we'll vote on it. That way everyone will feel comfortable.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, is the suggestion that we absolutely can do that. We could ask the MCAG to approach the 7 city managers and county CEO and discuss with them their positions regarding LPP versus RTIF.
Yeah.
Well, and
see what the use is.
I think that I don't think we're hearing any opposition to the theory of what you're planning on trying to do. But I think that you need to get it in a form that we can look at it and we can say yes or no.
Could TRD work that out?
What?
Could it be?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Each jurisdiction has their own considerations on how, for example, the mayor's comments about what is on their RTIF list, as far as what are their priorities. Each of the 7 jurisdictions have their own situation regarding their list, and Dos Palos has its own situation, and we completely understand that. But definitely, if the LPP goes to one of the larger jurisdictions, they will still also be getting RTIF funds because of the amount of money we're talking about here. But yes, we can absolutely do that at your direction.
I think we come back with a matrix. Saying this entity said that they would accept this and this.
That's fine.
Down to the dollar. Okay, so that's why.
Okay, I'd like to suggest that we take an action to continue this item to the next regular meeting. And will you wait 1 second, please? Mr. McDaniel? Director McDaniel, excuse me. And in addition, that staff put together a matrix and any other pertinent information that's necessary, consult with all the different 7 entities, and come back at the next meeting for an action. Is there a motion? McDaniel, that's a motion. And Villalta is a second. This is a kumbaya day. All those in favor, anyone in the public want to make comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is an oral report from Artis on the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County monthly update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Trying to turn on the mic?
No, I was just trying to get my PowerPoint presentation up and running. It's kind of hard to maneuver. Okay, thank you. So quite briefly here, I know we have a long agenda ahead, so I won't spend much time with this, but I want to put together a presentation to kind of show you what transit is doing. And as you can see from the slide, there are 4 different services that we do offer. The first one is fixed route services, which is regularly scheduled routes with designated stops and time points, and that consists of over 15 routes. Then we have a deviated fixed route, which is hybrid or fixed route and dollar ride upon request. And we have those 2 routes that are served Dos Palos and also in Gustine. Dollar Ride, which is curve-to-curve shared ride service available to anyone in Los Banos, Dos Palos, and also in Gustine. And then we have our transit service, which is curve-to-curve shared ride service, and you must be ADA certified to take part in that service there. And please stop me if you have any questions along the way. The community in which we serve, of course, these are pictures from your constituents in which we serve in the community. They're children, families, people with disabilities, and one of our biggest growing population is the UC students. And I'll share some numbers in a little bit as we go along. Who's riding fixed route? As you can see from the pie chart, 50% of our passengers are adults, so cash fare riders, and these are people that we can't capture as far as demographics, just cash fare paying passengers. Seniors, veterans, and ADA serve 23%. 12% of those is student passes, and these are high school students or UC students as well. And then a dedicated 11%, which is to UC students, and then 4%, which is children and care attendants. Our goal for fixed route is 48 passengers per hour. We try to maintain at least 8 passengers and a minimum of 4 passengers on fixed route, and a maximum of 4 passengers and a minimum of 2 passengers on our rural and power transit services. And this is how we measure our performance. As you can see from this slide, our ridership by month. As you can see, it is continually has increased, and we're really happy to report that even though the national ridership has declined across the nation, Merced County, our ridership is up. And as you can see, without me reading the numbers to you, that every month our ridership has actually increased year to date over last year. Fixed route passengers per revenue vehicle hour. Once again, the goal is 8 over 8 and not below. And as you can see from, once again, the numbers, we are well within those numbers, and so we're happy to report that as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just add a quick thing, Artis, I just want to mention that the raw ridership is one measure. One measure of what you have is how many people are riding it, but this actually tells you more about your efficiency and how well you're doing. So it tells you that basically that not only did we have that, we actually had a change in the amount of service that we provided. We had a slight decrease in the amount of service that we provided, so we're providing slightly less service, but we have more ridership.
That is correct.
That's what comes across in this graphic.
Thank you, Patrick. That is absolutely correct. Once again, on our fixed route passenger by revenue by route, and actually what this slide does, it really does break it down by route. And as you can see, those numbers are really good numbers, and we do have lower ridership in Gustine and Dos Palos, but we feel that service is necessary because we're providing lifeline services to those rural areas. And so because we're doing so well on the other routes, we can provide this service without losing any revenue as far as that is concerned. Average passengers by time of day on fixed routes, once again, as you can see, we average over 200 passengers across our entire system. And this is something that you really don't see in the transit industry, that those numbers really kind of stay steady across that 200 passengers per route at any time given a day from 7 a.m. to about 3 p.m. And then, of course, at 4 p.m. it begins to decline because people are going home and service hours are also actually declining as well. And then our passengers by route year to date. As you can see, once again, the numbers are up, and we're really happy to report that year to date we're about 710,000 passengers, and that number really doesn't include our paratransit riders, which adds another 34,000 passengers to that number. So probably a total of 745,000 passengers year to date that have been riding on our buses across the entire system. Why transit is important? Just quickly, transit is an essential public service for those living in a disadvantaged community and providing a means to work, school, and medical services that are vital to their everyday life. And Merced County is actually 50% disadvantaged, and we're proud to report that we service every county in that disadvantaged community. Any questions? Thank you.
Questions? All right, item 18. Excuse me. 19? Authorization to increase the operations and maintenance facility contract change order amount.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, Board. As you know, in 2017, you folks have authorized the Executive Director and MCAG to go into a contract to purchase and erect a building and maintenance facility for over $6.45 million. That came with a 10% change order fee. During the construction of the new facility, significant shortcomings have been identified, flaws in the design have also been identified, and we're quickly approaching that 10% change order fee. We're coming in asking for that you allow that threshold to be increased to an additional 10%. We do realize that there are some things that was not in the original design that caused us to come before you. I mean, things like in the original design, there was only 3 lights in the entire parking lot. We figured out after hiring a consultant, a transit consultant, that we were really had shortcomings, is what I'm trying to say, and kind of nervous a little bit here because we know we're coming to you asking for more money, and it's not an easy thing to do. But I'm glad you said, Mr. Chair, that this is a kumbaya, and I hope we're still having that kumbaya moment here.
I think we're over the kumbaya. From 10 to 20 is pretty tough.
It is pretty tough. However, we do feel confident that we won't have to come back to you and ask you for any more money. We do feel confident that we will be standing together October, November, cutting a ribbon, moving to our brand new facility, and it will be a functional facility based upon the changes that we do recognize that we need. And so we're asking that you would authorize the Executive Director to have an additional 10% in change order fee so that we may be able to complete our facility. We don't feel that we'll need the entire 10%, but we just want to make sure that the money will be in place in case we do it, and we don't want to hold up our process.
All right, you have a comment? Go ahead.
So I have one other important point is that artists, I've talked to you previously about how artists leading a transit team, that's one of the things they're focusing on is doing a better job not only of managing our contracts but managing our grants. And so that the good news is that some of these overages are going to be paid for out of savings on other grants. So, for example, the next item that's up for your discussion is something that we had a grant for $200,000. We're actually going to accomplish it for about $40,000.
Correct.
And we're able to redirect some of these available funds. That's just one example. That's happened a couple other times already as well.
That's correct.
So the good news is that while we do need your approval to expend the additional funds, we have been able to make sure that there are funds available to do so, and we're using the grant funds as best as possible.
Another question, Mike?
Artis, I was told by the city manager that there was quite a discussion at the TRB on this subject, and the county CEO had some questions about the contract. Have all those questions been answered to the satisfaction of the individuals at TRB?
I believe they were, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike?
Yeah, I just want to share, I appreciate you coming up. These questions have been answered to my satisfaction. These changes add value.
Yes, sir.
It's not just paying more for the same work, but actually identifying that there were some deficiencies that need to be added that are actually going to add value to the facility.
Absolutely.
As long as you all remember, it is money. And you're going from 10 to 20. Okay, so we have the item before us. Any other comments? Anyone in the public? And the action requested is to increase the change orders. I'm sorry, thank you. The change orders from 10% to 20% on the transit project. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, Murphy. Is there a second? And there's a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. What was that? Motion? Everybody, I heard everybody say yes. I didn't know if did you vote no? No, I voted yes twice. Let the record show it was unanimous. Plus one.
Thank you.
Okay, number 21, proposed budget fiscal year 2018-19 operating and capital. Well, no wonder I checked the wrong one. Yeah, purchase of radio equipment and installation.
I'm going to cover that today. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. The Transit Joint Powers Authority currently has an analog radio system which uses the Merced County's infrastructure. The radio equipment is no longer available and nor supported. So we went out and did research and found GPS Lock, which provides a radio equipment which uses cellular wireless towers instead of installing infrastructure, leading to savings, which will, like Patrick mentioned, go towards the facility. So I'm requesting that you approve us to go into contract to purchase equipment and provide installation not to exceed $40,000.
We have a motion? Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone in the public? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Item 21 is proposed fiscal year budget 2018-19 operating and capital budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing has changed from previous months. Our total operating is $11 million, and our capital is around $7 million. I mean, if anybody has any questions, I can answer any questions.
So you're wanting a motion to approve the 18-19 operating capital budget?
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion? There you go. We have a second? Joe, second. Discussion? Comments from the public? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County Financial Report, July 17 to March of 18, unaudited. It's for information. Are there questions on that item? Anybody? Did you want to make a report?
No.
Thank you.
Made my life easier. Thank you.
Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority monthly update. Brooks. Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Mouse doesn't move very fast. Couple of quick updates. Billy Wright Landfill construction so far is going really well. Wood Brothers actually before the week that they officially started, they had all their equipment staged and all the surveying done. And so now we're 2 weeks. Monday was 2 weeks into the project, and they've already moved 100,000 yards of the soil that needed to be moved, and that's the major effort, is moving about 500,000 yards. So they're about a quarter of the way through in 3 weeks, and no issues so far. So we hope that stays the course. The landfill gas to energy project is also going well so far. We've been extracting information from the UC regarding the permits, their current air permits, and I don't want to get too technical, but essentially what's going to happen is we are allowed to flare our landfill gas at the landfill. So we currently have an emissions, and we are about 1/3 of the capacity that we're allowed to emit. So we have a lot of headroom. We don't need to get a new permit at the landfill for decades. But if we put the pipeline over to the UC and flare it there and make electricity, the Air Board will probably call that a new source. Even though it's the exact same landfill, the same gas, and our actual treatment of it, it's going to be better than flaring. It's going to be a cleaner burning system over there. there will be new permits and more expense with that. And so we're trying to investigate what their current level of emissions are, because they have natural gas burning to boil water, and they also have generators that are natural gas powered. And so we have to determine what their level of tolerance is for us adding that and what the expense will be. And that's one of the main determining factors of whether we want to move forward or not. So, but I mentioned that because they've been very good about providing us with that information, what their current emissions are. The soil sales, you know, the project over here, the Campus Parkway, I got it written right there too. Campus Parkway is a go, and so they're going to need some soil just like AME. And so Ty, one of the planners at MCAG, has been, I think he's getting a commission on this soil sales because he's been pushing it to everybody. So anyway, we've already had multiple vendors come out and look at our soil, and it should be suitable because it's the same spot where we were digging for the AME project. And the point is, we had several million yards of excess soil on the site. And at some point, we would have the expense of excavating it, loading it, and hauling it, and paying someone to take it. And they're paying us for it. So it's a wonderful deal, but don't tell them that. I mean, we act like it's very valuable, and they should pay a lot for it. But it should help the project. We hope we're the closest site, and we hope that'll go through. And last one is landfill compaction. And so the reason for the Nerf balls. So when you're in the landfill business, what the industry term we call it is airspace. What we're actually selling is the volume or the capacity inside the landfill that you create. And so this is phase 6A at Highway 59 landfill, and this before we started to put waste in it. So if we can see the mouse here, so this white here represents the outside edge. That's the north side, and it's kind of a trapezoid. This is the more of the west side. There's a south side. There is no side over here because that's where we're going to expand horizontally. And then the whole thing is shaped like a bathtub. So then this is the center line. And so water, any rainwater or liquids that come into the landfill flow to that point, and then the drain, so to speak, is right here. So essentially what we've constructed is a rectangular container like this. We just don't have one side over here. And so what we're trying to do is all the jurisdictions generate waste, comes in, and each one of these balls represents hundreds of thousands of tons or millions of dollars in revenue. So if you put it in just like you are now, it takes up a lot of space and it fills up very quickly. And so what we're doing is making sure we don't just get those number of balls in there or that amount of waste in there. We're continuing to take more. Yes, this is the reason for improving our density or our compaction. So what happens there is we try to push it down and get more waste in there. The liner that bin represents was $13 million. So we want to get as much waste in there so it's cheap. We don't have to build another one sooner. We don't need a landfill sooner, and it reduces costs for citizens. So how do we do that? This is, thank you, Marty. This is the same footprint of that landfill in 2015. Now, we didn't start using it until late 11, early 12. But you can see that little white liner here at the back corner, right here. That's that edge that you just saw right here, this area right here. So we've filled it about halfway up to there. And then you can see here, there it is again, but now we've actually gone to the grade and we're going above grade, and the top will look like a pyramid. So how do we increase the density? We buy this machine, and this is the point of the presentation here, is we spend $1.25 million on a compactor. We've got 3 of them, 2 operating ones and 1 spare. And this is the industry standard, a CAT 836, and it weighs 62 tons. To put that into perspective, a fully loaded tractor trailer, semi, big rig on the road weighs 40 tons. So this one machine weighs half again as much as a semi tractor trailer fully loaded.
Scales or after the scales?
This is after the scales. These don't go across. These things are so big. When you transport them, this is the wide load sign, and you have to remove the blade. And depending on the bridge, for example, to get it at Billy Wright, we can't go underneath the bridges. They have to go over to Santanella, and we have to go through people's fences and through pasture to get it into the site. So we don't move them around very often. So, and there's another image that gives you perspective of Joe standing on top of it, how big that machine actually is. So we've been tracking how much waste we get into the landfill. And so when we started in October 13, we started changing the way we operated. We actually reduced staff. You remember this, we reduced staff and sold equipment, but we changed the way we operated. We trained our employees and started measuring what they were doing. And so where we've gone is about 200 pounds per cubic yard. So length time, width time, height. What we do is we survey, for example, the ground floor, do a survey with that, and then come back 2 weeks later and survey it again, and then we track all the tons that came in through the scale. And we have an accurate weight to within 20 pounds for each transaction. So it's very accurate, and we see how well we packed it in. And so 200 pounds may not sound like much, but when you look at, we take in 1,000 tons a day, and the density is 1,250 pounds, we use up 1,600 cubic yards in a day. If we increase it 200 pounds, it goes to 1,379. We save 220 yards a day, and at $36, that's $6,300 every single day. So we've tracked that now. That's just the estimate. But here's what we've actually done from 2013 to 2017. We've increased it and stayed consistent the last 3 years, and we're doing this in 18 as well. And we've saved 64,000, 61,000, and 72,000 yards of space, and then been able to put garbage in there that we're charging money for. And so the actual cash value of that has been $6 million up through December of last year. And we're doing, so far, we've been on track for that this year. So and remember, this is less staff, less equipment, and we're still gaining these savings. So the employees have really embraced this. They've helped with this. And remember when we purchased the drone a few months back, the whole idea behind that was that instead of a person going out there by hand and walking over the garbage, which is dangerous and a hazard and very time consuming, the drone can fly it in 15 minutes and be even more accurate. And that the whole point there is we have these graphs in our break room and in the offices at the landfills so the employees can see where we are, and we're tracking that and following it. And that drone will help us do that better. So, and I had to share this picture because every time a landfill person sees a clean compactor, it's just kind of funny because the first day you put it in the garbage, it looks like this. And it's kind of like Marty's told me, the low straw is the guy who has to actually take it in the garbage the first time and get it dirty and messy. But this is how it usually looks, a little more dirty than those first pictures. Okay, any questions about density and compaction? And
questions or comments? Anyone?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you. And the employees do it. But yes, thank you.
Okay, quarterly diversion program update. Jennifer?
Thank you. Yes, so I'm just going to give a brief overview of the last 3 months, but what's been going on. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is the Cal Recycle site visits. This is where Cal Recycle sends out a rep and they visit each jurisdiction annually. So what I did was meet with all the 6 cities in the county with the solid waste division staff or public works staff to prepare them for these site visits. These are basically the rundown of what every jurisdiction needs to do, make sure that they have in order so that they don't face compliance orders. The first thing would be identification of businesses that are going to meet these mandates. So the 2 mandates are commercial recycling for certain businesses that meet a certain threshold, as well as multifamily complexes. And now they're throwing in organics diversion. So they're kind of wanting businesses to start looking like residential homes where they separate trash, recyclables, and now green waste, including food. So to prepared for this. The jurisdictions are supposed to identify the businesses that meet this threshold that are supposed to get this in place, educate the businesses on what they need to do, what their options are. By the way, this does not have an enforcement leg on it, so it's kind of like you're just throwing education at them. And then tracking, monitoring the businesses that are participating with these programs and the ones who are not. For the ones who are not, CalRecycle wants the 6 cities in the county to really get out there and educate the businesses more on why they need to get it. Also, CalRecycle has noted that we do not have a food recycler in the area, and so they just want to make sure that the education is in place so that when we do have something in place, the businesses are ready for that. The fourth one is reporting. That's what I'm going to be helping the 6 cities and the county with. Is what we do is we report regionally the numbers to CalRecycle. So I'm going to be working with the haulers on getting those numbers of who's participating and who is not, so that we can report that. Are there any questions on those programs? Okay, well, here's the good news. So household hazardous waste, thank you, Jose, for mentioning that Harlan had that comment about the hazardous waste events going well. We've been seeing a pretty good turnout for Los Banos. We see a really high turnout because it's with their cleanup events. For Merced, they're only half-day events. We've been averaging about 35 to 45 vehicles each time. So we're going to try to, we submitted a grant for hazardous waste public education to let people know about the programs. So now it's waiting on CalRecycle's side of it to see if we get approved for that grant money to really educate people more about what's in their households, what they can do with it, and then coming out to our events. By the way, the next one is July 22nd. So diversion's happening right now with your guys' cleanup events. It's rounding up right now. The last one for this part of the year is going to be Atwater, which is going to be this Saturday. Other than that, the next ones are going to be in the fall. But what we've been helping the cities and the county coordinate with is to get some trailers available at these events to help with diversion. That includes for mattresses and tires. And then the hauler has been really good on trying to get a metal recycler out there as well. And then at sometimes also electronics. So there's actually diversion happening at your community cleanup events. We also let CalRecycle know about that as well because it counts towards your diversion programs for your annual reports. This is just an example of City of Merced. They did a great job they have weekend events, so they had 2 weekend events. Each one of these mattress trailers can hold about 150 mattress units. And as you can see, they actually needed 3 of these trailers for one of their weekends, just to give an idea about numbers. So for this first part of the year, your guys' community cleanup events, by having these trailers on site, you've actually saved in disposal costs, and it's actually saved us landfill space. So for example, those trailers that they use for mattresses, that amount of mattresses would otherwise be taking up airspace in our landfills, but now they're getting diverted for free. You're not having to pay for those $5 a piece disposal rates, and then they're getting recycled. So altogether, for mattresses, you saved about $6,500 in total. For tire trailers, to get those taken directly from the sites to a recycler, the grants have covered about $16,500 in expenses that usually the cities and the county would be spending on having to bring that to the landfills, get it, us having to double handle it, and then getting it to recycler. So it's more direct, and it's actually being recycled, and you're saving money. So it's a great partnership between the RWA and the cities and the county with these regional grants. So one thing that the tires get turned into, it can be turned into road base, it can be turned into mulch. Right now, we got a grant for TDA, which means tire-derived aggregate. So we actually are going to be awarded money to be able to use this tire-derived aggregate for our gas collection lines. So instead of using traditional rock aggregate, we're going to be using this recycled product. This was a picture from 2 years ago when we did it, and we just started getting loads in this week of this material, as well as next week we're going to be getting some to put in those gas collection lines. So it's aerated material that helps get the gas to the line and then over to the methane collection flare, which will eventually go to UC. And then we were awarded $106,000 for that. And that's the good news I'm going to end on. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you. Oh.
Lloyd?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I have an ask.
Okay.
You're familiar with the Golden Byproducts site?
Yes.
So that is in the process of being sold, and are you aware of that?
Yes, and right now they're renting out to a plastic recycler.
Right. Mm-hmm. So they've come to the county to do an amendment to their conditional use permit, and it's all kind of moving in the right direction. But I just hope that it would stay moving in the right direction. And because the plastics is such a mess, you know, the county's like, hey, you got to clean this up. And so anyways, so my suggestion or my ask would be to maybe reach out to them or to the county, however you see fit, and try to help that process along.
Yes, so that's actually through the Environmental Health Division. So we can always just reach out to them, be communication with them, and then see what happens there. Because I'm also an RMDZ administrator, which means Recycling Market Development Zone. So we actually try to get businesses to take in recycled products and make it into new products. So if there's any way we can help them with that, we could try to do that as well.
Yeah, okay. Brooks.
I just want to add, because I don't know if you knew that too. The American Paving, I think, is the company.
American Tire Recycling.
Tire Recycling, but what they're trying to do is pave,
Yes.
make roads out of it, and so they've approached us about being a partner with them, and so we've already communicated with them that we're very, very willing, but we can communicate with the county as well.
Yeah, the county needs a little encouragement, I believe.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's going in the right direction. I just don't want it to stall on something.
Yeah, so far, and they're working with the prior operators of Golden Byproducts.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Thank you. Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority financial reports. Nadia.
Good afternoon. So I just wanted to point out that we are doing well revenue-wise. We did meet our projected revenue back in February. So from now until June, it's pretty much gravy for the landfill, and we'll probably be coming back at a later time to ask to put those excess funds into reserves for future projects and or fleet. Our expenses are right on target where they need to be, except as you may have noticed already, the state solid waste fees, but we will address that in the next item. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
Questions? Go into item 26. County Regional Waste Management Authority budget amendments.
Okay, just bear with me. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we are having a record year revenue-wise. We actually expect to exceed $15.5 million in tipping fees, which is really great. And this is a direct result of us exceeding our projected disposed tons of 275,000. And because of that, because of exceeding that tonnage, we exceeded what we had budgeted for state solid waste fees. We pay $1.40 for every ton that goes into the landfill. And so it is a good problem to have because it does increase revenue. So we're asking to increase revenue to a more realistic number, and just the solid waste fees, not any other expenses.
How much is the increase?
It is $245,000 in state solid waste fees.
Per ton.
Oh, per ton, it's $1.40 a ton, and we exceeded it by 96,000. So I'm just making a projection that we'll probably need another 245,000 by the end of June.
Certainly.
So I'll move that we increase the facility fee disposal revenue to $15.5 million and increase the solid waste fee to $630,000.
For the question, or we have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. And now the next one, proposed fiscal budget, 18-19 operating budget, to 18-19 capital project overview, and 18-19 fleet budget.
Okay, so this is the final budget for the 18-19, and it is, except for a few minor changes, similar to the draft budget that came before you last month. So I just wanted to highlight in operating expenses that we tweaked the salaries some to a tune of $90,000. So that's a difference from the draft that came before you last month. And in regards to capital projects, we changed the requested amount for an existing one, the scale house lane improvements. We're asking $350 instead of $250. And for all other new projects, the Highway 59 landfill gas collection system, we're requesting $600,000 instead of $500,000. And those are the changes that we have. We did add to the bottom of the capital projects list, just for your information of what may be coming up in the future. We have organic diversion that we need to resolve at both sides, and we have replacing aging infrastructure. So we're not requesting any money for that at this point in time. We're just letting you know that that's coming up.
Questions? We have a motion? Is there a second? We have a motion, a second. Further questions? Anything from the public? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Patrick Pittenger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few comments. I'll just note that we've been making progress on the pavement management system. I'm going to look forward to coming back to you next month with an update, and we're going to be talking to your staff before the next meeting of this board, just to tell them where we are, because now, as was previously mentioned, we actually have now expended the MCAG portion of the funds, so we actually will be invoicing using funds committed previously by the jurisdictions. I'll note that we actually just today got I think a hopefully final draft layout for the building remodel for the building that was purchased next to the current offices that is going to be a remodel for transit, and it's looking really good, and glad we got progress going there. Thanks to everybody once again for the one voice participation. We really appreciate that. Look forward to coming back next month for Measure V. Of course, as Stacy mentioned, the regional project committees met, and we were very pleased with the progress made at those meetings. But the actual voting authority lies with the full governing board, so we look forward to coming back to the full governing board. And next week I'll be out Wednesday through Friday, my first 3 days off in a row since I got here. And Stacy's in charge, and you're in good hands with the senior management team.
Director's report. Joe. Jim.
As Joe mentioned, Memorial Day coming up is a big deal down in Atwater. We have the miniature, well, they're not so miniature, but out of Castle, they have every year a 3-day gathering, literally thousands of aircraft that are remote control aircraft, and some of them are as big as your family car. They're pretty big stuff. And that's open to the public. So if anybody wants to come out and see that, that's going to be going on along with Open Cockpit Day. It'll be in conjunction with that at the Castle Air Museum. So it's Memorial Day weekend is a big deal out at in Atwater and out at Castle. So if anybody wants to come out and bring the kids and all that, it's a fun day. Also wanted to mention that here a week and a half ago or so, Darren, we all went on the Amtrak early morning commuter. For those that might see the need to go to Sacramento to make an 8 o'clock meeting, that's a great way to travel. And it's right on time, believe me. It said we pull out of the station at 5:25, and we did. 5:25 on the dot, we were rolling, and pulled into Sacramento 20 minutes ahead of schedule. So for those that need to go to Sacramento and do whatever business you have to do and come back, it's a great way to go. Also, lastly, we're coming up on the 4th of July, and I want to, again, rah-rah Atwater for the celebration that we have each year there. It's a big, big celebration. Starts off early in the morning with a 10K run, and then we have the parade, followed by a day in Ralston Park of vendors and what have you. This year is going to be a little bit different. On the 3rd of July, we are going to have a what we're referring to a block party in Ralston Park. It's to draw more folks to come to the vendors that are going to be out there. We're also going to have live entertainment and what is commonly referred to as Margaritaville out there, where, of all places, you can get a margarita, right? So you can come out and do that. There's going to be food and live entertainment by a local group called Flashback. If you become familiar with them, they'll be there from 7 to 10. And the next day, out at Castle, we're going to have the fireworks going on out there. This year, it's going to be a bigger display, but it's still going to cost about $1,000 a minute every time we go and shoot up fireworks. So it's a big expense. But our entertainment out there for the concert is going to be Mike Hammer and the Nails. If you have ever caught Mike Hammer and his group, they are very much a local favorite. And the headliner for that evening is going to be a friend of mine from out of the Bay Area, a guy named Daniel Castro. If you're familiar with Daniel Castro, he's going to be playing out there as well. And we'll wrap it all up and have the fireworks out there. So lots of stuff happening out in Atwater, contrary to the newspaper stuff. So in any case, come on out to Atwater, 4th of July and Memorial Day weekend. Thanks.
Mike. Beat that one.
Yeah.
You want me to beat that one?
Not really.
I could give a 6-month report of activities in Las Vegas.
All he's done is just justified the fact that he is not going to get a report that in June. Maybe. No, positive. I'm going to be chair in June. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
It's all right, Jerry. It's all right. Yes, just one comment. Please remember Memorial Day. Look for all the celebrations that are going to happen. The National Cemetery will be on Sunday, the 27th. Las Vegas will be on Monday, the 28th. Thank you.
Wanted to commend and thank the Regional Waste Authority staff for coordinating spring cleanup with City of Merced that happened those 2 weekends, Saturday and Sunday of both weekends. And this Saturday, we've got a lot going on downtown at Bob Hart Square. We've got the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has a 5K cowboy run in the morning, and around the same time as the Mayor's Bike Ride. And in the evening, again at Bob Hart Square, is the Greater Merced Chamber of Commerce having their Burgers and Brews event. So a lot going on. And then just wanted to say it's just sort of, it's nice to be in these chambers. There are some technology upgrades I wanted to point out since we were here last time. These microphones over here where we have our staff sit allows every director to have their own microphone and their own space. So anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Thanks for your hospitality.
Yep. I worked really hard to get this meeting right. Yeah. No.
Well, you may as well take the credit. Thanks. Lloyd.
Oh. Yep. Anyways, just sorry, I'm kind of lagging up here. I guess we kind of had a good second half of the meeting, and it was kind of just information, not controversial, and not used to that with this group. So anyways, I would like to let you know that the Winton's VFW is going to have an event at the Winton Cemetery on Memorial Day. It starts at 10 o'clock, and then it will go back to the VFW hall after that. And then also, Joe, you mentioned the Gustine VFW at 11 or 10? Ooh, okay. Yeah, I was asked or told that it was at 11 at Hills Ferry Cemetery, and then also goes back to the hall. So just encourage you to think of that this weekend and remember those that gave their lives so that we could sit here and argue with each other and be happy with each other and sing Kumbaya.
Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to announce, thank you, Patrick, for reminding me that YARTS will be providing free rides Memorial Day weekend to Yosemite and up and throughout the area. And I as well would wish everybody a happy Memorial Day.
Thanks for that yards report. April.
It's a busy week in Dos Palos. We have the Eagle Field drag races are going on all weekend, and it brings thousands of people out to Eagle Field. It's been going on for several years, and when they first started, I would go out and sing the national anthem, and there was maybe 300 people there. Thousands now go out to Eagle Field, so it's a really fun time. Also, there is a Dos Palace High School Hall of Fame dinner Saturday night, so if you were a Dos Palace athlete, there are 300 tickets that have been sold already, so it should be a busy night. And on that same night, we are having a roller derby. So if you are a roller derby fan, there is an actual roller derby men and women's team that do tournaments in Dos Palace. And if you've never been to a roller derby match, oh my goodness, really fun. It was extremely fun. I'd like to thank all the veterans for their service, and we will be having a Veterans Memorial service on Monday the 28th. I will be singing the national anthem. And I would like to congratulate all the graduates. My school in Fresno is going to be graduating on the 23rd. Maybe it's the 28th. I better find out what day. Anyway, it's coming up soon. And I would like to put in my request that I would really like microphones at our chamber. So these are very nice microphones. I'm still waiting for the ones in our Dos Palace chamber. But everyone have a nice weekend, and I'm out.
Mike.
I attended the Valley Policy Conference, and Darren was there as well. There may have been others. I'll share one, I think, really interesting piece of information. That was there was a panel on passenger rail, and they had average daily ridership for all of the stations on the San Joaquin's line, and Merced was like 3 times as much as anywhere else. I mean, it was like a clear spike that there's more demand for passenger rail service in Merced than anywhere else on that line. So I don't know the answers to that. It was the first time I saw that information, but certainly very interesting.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Council, you have anything?
I'll be very, very brief, but please join us at the fair June 6th through the 10th. I'll be out there every day, so if you need tickets or a parking pass, give me a call.
All right, and are there any other comments from anyone?
I know, can't go back, but I would like to thank Supervisor O'Banion for all his support for Measure V regional stuff. Thanks.
Director O'Banion. Okay, I have nothing, but we do have a closed session, and I'd like to have council give us the information necessary to get us into closed session.
As noted on your agenda, this is a closed session to discuss, As noted on your agenda, this is a closed session to discuss public employee appointment pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957B1.
And we will come out, and if there are any actions that are taken, we will make those public. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And if you leave, the next meeting will be on June 21st at the County of Merced. Are we going to do it here? Or are we going to go there? Let's go in the back room. Okay. We're going to go in the room right next door here. Joy, are you taping the meeting? Okay, turn it on. Is it on? It's on. That screen's on. Okay. We're back from closed session, and direction has been given to staff, the council, as well as the advisory committee that was established to, that's the only direction that we've given to them at this point. We did give them direction, and they will take care of any discussions that need to go forward rather than all of us. Anything else come for the meeting? No, we're adjourned. We're adjourned.